Hello everyone, it's Jamal Thomas. Welcome to the Progressive Soapbox. So let me make sure I'm up. This one is going to be blisteringly quick. I'm seeing green, and so I am going to assume that the world is good, and the world is indeed... Yeah, well, it seems like I'm moving, but I can't necessarily tell if this is right. Alright, I'm going to assume that this is doing what it's supposed to do. Donald Trump hooks up with a porn star. And after he hooks up with this porn star, time passes. And in order to bury this case, meaning in order to hide the fact that he had sex with a porn star, his lawyer pays $130,000 to silence the case. This one is not going to be long. This one is more of a few interesting thoughts associated with this. So this comes out in the Washington Times. So let's look at the story, and then let's talk about it. Because I think I'm probably going to think about this in a different way than I think the news or the media is going to talk about it. Trump lawyer arranged $130,000 payment for adult film star's silence. Agreement just before election required woman to keep quiet about alleged sexual affair or encounter with Trump in 2006. People familiar with the matter say. A lawyer for President Donald Trump arranged a $130,000 payment to a former adult film star a month before the 2016 election as part of an agreement that precluded her from publicly discussing an alleged sexual encounter with Mr. Trump, according to people familiar with the matter. Michael Cohen. And you know what's wild about it? It doesn't matter if you pay this woman to shut up if you have people around you who would talk. It's like, here's $130,000. I need you to shut the fuck up about this affair. And it's like, okay, I'm not going to say a word. And then the guy who's right there beside the lawyer or whoever else is nearby is whispering, to his press agent. It's like, yeah, let's keep going. Michael Cohen, who spent nearly a decade as a top attorney for Trump Organization, arranged payment to a woman, Stephanie Clifford, in October 2016 after her lawyer negotiated the non-disclosure agreement with Mr. Cohen, these people said. Mrs. Clifford, whose stage name is Stormy Daniels, has privately alleged the encounter with Mr. Trump took place after they met at the July 2006 celebrity golf tournament on the shores of Lake Tahoe. These people said Mr. Trump married Melania Trump in 2005. Essentially, he married a year when he hooked up with the porn star, Stormy Daniels. And I remember that porn star, Stormy Daniels. That's awesome. Mr. Trump faced other allegations during the campaign of inappropriate behavior with women and vehemently denied them. In this matter, there is no allegation of non-consensual interaction. So right there. Right there. As I read this story, that's where I stopped. My concern and my care drained out of me right there. It was consensual. He didn't rape her. He didn't abuse her. He didn't, he wasn't this aggressor. He didn't, quote unquote, grab her by the pussy. He didn't do any of this stuff that was aggressive, abusive, any of that stuff. Two human beings met. One human being that was married. So shame on you for that. The other human being was a porn star. And like a lot of guys, look, let me say it this way. My wife will never admit this. She would never admit this. Has a thing for Hugh Jackman. Now, they had a wedding party, and at that wedding party, they had this kind of raunchy game that all of those women were playing. All of these raunchy, nasty women were playing this game. Talking about sexual favors and everything else. And they essentially asked me in advance, who would your wife hook up with if your wife was given the opportunity to hook up with? Meaning, like, if you had a list, a free pass list. Like, if there was, who on this earth, if you had the opportunity, who on this earth will be on that list for your wife? And I put Hugh Jackman. Now, you have a bunch of African-American women who are sitting around talking to my wife, and they're pulling this card out, and there's like, who did your husband think that you would choose? And I think she named Common. Yeah, I think she named Common. And they said, Hugh Jackman. It was like, Hugh Jackman? What the fuck? Where did that come from? I've seen her lust after Hugh Jackman during the Wolverine shows. I've seen her lust after him, staring at his body. She thinks I don't see her, but I see her. I see her. A lesser man would feel some kind of way about it, but it's okay. I understand that she's a human being. As a human being, she has certain urges and failings, just like everyone else. And not to mention, the guy put on like 50 pounds of muscle in order to play that role. Fair enough. She's a human being. Would I blame her if I knew about it? Yes. Would I blame her in the abstract? Probably not. Now, that being said, I take the marriage vow as being an actual vow. I think the marriage thing is somewhat contrived in general, but whatever. You know, you make a vow to be with somebody, not cheat on them. You should probably live by that particular thing. My point in this is Donald Trump met a porn star. And meeting a porn star, I would imagine all sorts of ideas in his head kicked off about, oh my God, this woman was a porn star. And he may even remember her in porn. He might be thinking to himself, oh my God, he has a conception in his head of what it's going to be like to mess around with this woman. This woman knows him as Donald Trump. Each person has an image of the other. Neither of the images is correct, but each one has an image of the other. And they wanted to explore that particular image. Shame on Trump because Donald Trump was married. But this was consensual. And this is all intents and purposes none of my business. Meaning, I don't have to feel any particular way about Donald Trump for doing this. And I have to be honest, I think to myself, how many men, if given the opportunity, would have ventured into that space? I strongly suspect a lot. Now, this doesn't give Donald Trump a pass on this by any means. And I suspect I wouldn't have. Not because I'm just that much better of a person, but I think I would have been slightly freaked out by the fact she was a porn star. But I'm just making this point that this is none of my business per se. Like, this is not for me to pass judgment one way or the next. I feel the same way about this one. I felt the same way about this reading it. In the same way I felt about Weiner's stuff. Well, not the point where he's messing with kids. But I'm talking about Weiner essentially hitting on all these other women as Carlos Danger and all this other stuff. It's funny, but it's not really in my business. Even when Republicans are getting caught messing around with some, gay lover or something like that, it's none of my business. It's none of my business. I don't care. It's not something for me to pass judgment on. It's more so slightly comical to me more than anything else. They dredged this up to hit Donald Trump with it. Now, when I first read this, I thought to myself, well, A, is it consensual? Was it abusive? At the point where it was like non-consensual, it's like, okay. Donald Trump had the opportunity to hook over the porn star, and Donald Trump hooked over the porn star. Let me say it this way, because I'm trying to get across what I think about this. What I think about this is somewhat split. A, I feel like this is none of my business, so I don't really have any feelings per se about it. This is just intellectual conversation. B, I understand from the perspective of just being a guy. And a guy is in the situation of having the opportunity to hook up with this person, and he does. And he breaks his wedding vow. I also think that this is probably not the first time Donald Trump has broke his wedding vow. So this is probably not once off. That's the other part to this. It's like, this is not like, is anybody mind blown that Donald Trump cheated on his wife? And maybe this is where I'm coming from. This is why I'm so desensitized to this. In his books or something, there was this thing where they was talking about him cheating on his wife. So it was like this was already known. This was somewhat baked into the cake that the guy had cheated on his wife. I don't understand the political impact of this. Like, I don't understand what they're dredging this up to hit him with. I think a lot of guys will look at this and be like, that was pretty cool. He hooked up with a porn star. I know women are going to look at me and say, oh my God, you're an animal. But be honest. None of this PC shit. A red-blooded American male who've been raised in this particular culture, in this particular society. And in being raised in this particular culture, this particular society, also has a massive ego because his daddy gave him huge amounts of cash. He considers himself to be Donald Trump. And at this point, he's been firing, has been celebrities for the past, X number of years. So he has a pretty high opinion of himself, even though that opinion is probably not all that deserved. And he meets this particular woman who just happens to be a porn star. And like I said, all sorts of thoughts are probably going through his head. And he's probably thinking to himself, it would be pretty cool to bang a porn star. Now, I don't know what she was thinking. But whatever she was thinking, apparently, they were able to seal that particular deal. And yeah. I just thought this was more funny than anything else. This is not a Yeah, I just thought this was more funny. If there was consent, it's really none of my business. D. Simmons, yeah, that's how I feel about it too. But they are gonna scream and yell about it. I mean, they're gonna scream and yell about this as if nobody knew that Donald Trump was sexist and nobody knew that Donald Trump cheated on his wife. And I have to be honest, I suspect the effect of this is going to be negligible if there's effect at all. Like, it's like saying, hey, do you believe Donald Trump cheated on his wife? I think the overwhelming majority of the people will say yes, including the people who voted for Donald Trump. If you tell them he cheated on his wife with a porn star, now the women are going to say, oh, that bastard, that rat bastard, that asshole, etc., etc., etc. The men are going to look at this in the same way I think they would look at their son as if they caught their son hooking up with the cheerleader at school. Oh, son, you need to not do that. You need to not do that, son. Your mom is going to be very disappointed in you. Good job. That's my boy. That's my boy. So, this story is going to be a non-starter. I guess that's my point. It was just the locker room adultery. Locker room adultery? Is that what they call it? He cheated on his wife. This is an issue between him and his wife. This is not an issue for me. This is between him and his wife. I would have felt the same way if they caught Melania cheating on him. This is between him and his wife. This is between them two, not me. This is not a situation where he's hooking up with the intern. This is not a situation where he's in a particular position where he's leaning on that person for his position. He's not masturbating into a plant. He's not doing any of this weird and out there shit. One human being wanted to have sex with another human being. And those few human beings got it on. Unfortunately, he has a wife. And his wife was somewhat humiliated by his insensitive actions. Now, that's the crux of this. That's the crux. The angst and the anger is going to come from Melania. The outrage is going to come from the outraged people who are just out there because they hate Donald Trump and they just want to take a shot at Donald Trump. But ultimately, this is... A, it feels like it's old news because I expected this from Donald Trump. So it's not one of those things where you can actually hit him with. B, this is the guy who had a video called Grabbing by the Pussy. So he's grabbing it by the pussy, but at the very least, the pussy wanted to be grabbed. And C, the issue here, believe it or not, is not the fact that he hooked up with the porn star, is that he paid the porn star to shut up about it. That's the issue. Like, it's not, they used to always say it's not the crime, it's the cover-up. Well, in this case, it's the cover-up. The cover-up looks bad. It's the, well, why are you paying $130,000? The fact is, he shouldn't have paid her squat. If that woman wanted to come forward and talk, let her talk. So what? It's a consensual sex. Yes, it may look bad, but so what? Your base, you had a huge amount of men who essentially voted for you. Those men are not going to care one iota. The women are going to be pissed off at you. But I suspect that the people who voted for you already knew that this was probably baked into the cake. So, it was stupid for paying this woman off. That's all I'm saying. It's not the punishment, it's the crime. I mean, it's not the crime, it's the cover-up. Yeah, we sure did, and I had the same response to that, Bob. What Billy did with his Willie was none of my business. Yeah, Rubble Cage Rat, same here. I felt the same way. And I told you beforehand, I have, I don't know where I fall on this thing of internal work dynamics. But ultimately, if it's consensual, it is none of my business. It's between adults. It is between adults. Luca Clemente, no doubt Putin was involved. Rachel Maddow will find the connection. He paid the porn star off to shut up because the porn star was in the room when Donald Trump was on the phone with Vladimir Putin in order to subvert Lady Liberty. Yeah, she'll find it. Rachel Maddow's on the case. Rachel Maddow's on the case. Yeah. I suspect the stories just pushed Jamal TDS buttons and had him wetting himself. You know, it's funny though. Like I said, Trump, I understand that he's probably thinking to himself, okay, I don't want this to come out. But maybe to some degree, this is Trump misunderstanding his image. If that makes sense. Like, it's like, why am I paying this woman off when people already assume this? It's like people already assume I'm sleeping with prostitutes or sleeping with porn stars. It's like, come on. People aren't shocked by this. They aren't shocked by this at all. Yeah, man. I just thought this was funny. This isn't this isn't a long story. I read this and I thought this is fucking hilarious. The media is they are bathing in Donald Trump. Is it just me? Like I every so often I would look at CNN's channel because I don't necessarily watch them on my television. I don't have my cable is hooked up through like the internet, so I don't really have the TV itself hooked up. We have like Amazon and all the channels, but it's through Xbox or through our Fire. And so online, I would look at CNN's thing or MSNBC's thing, and it's always about Donald Trump. Always is about Donald fucking Trump. It's like there is no story other than Donald Trump. He sucks up all the air out of the room. It is amazing. You would think that there was nothing else that has taken place in the entirety of the world, in the entirety of the United States, in the entirety of the country. I mean, in the entirety of any particular state. It's all about Donald fucking Trump. It's amazing. I've never seen a president suck up this much of the attention and this much of the eyes. It's amazing. It's weird. It's so weird. No, it ain't just you. They're staring at the tree to deliberately ignore the forest. Yeah, man, this is fucking bizarre. Bob Ramirez said, Church Lady Maddow, could it be Putin? Seriously, Jamal, we don't even know if Donald Trump and Melania have an open relationship to begin with. There are a ton of those rich couples and cultures, so yeah, it's only between them. Yeah, I agree with you, Rebel. Look, I've said before, this stuff is just cultural. It's not real per se. People make their own arrangements, then they come up to some terms into how they themselves create their own relationships. If you want to have 3, 4, 5, 10, whatever, I don't care. It's up to you. Human beings make the choice on how those human beings want to live. When you are in a relationship with your wife, your spouse, or whatever, you yourself are creating that dynamic. I mean, the world that you two create with each other is the world that you two create with each other. It's your choice. It's your choice. Hopefully, you were created to be somewhat of a heavenly experience. But just like being human beings, there's some, problems. Everybody has their own issues that they run into. But I'm just making the point that the space that you create is your own. We don't know what that space is between Donald Trump and Melania. That's a good point, Rebel. That's a good point. Now, it's very possible that he paid her off not because of issues with Melania, but because he just didn't want to go to public. Melania might have already known. We don't know what their relationship is like. I guess that's my point. That's my point. And even if Melania didn't know, it's Donald fucking Trump. I mean, it's like, come on. Are we blown away by this? This is a guy who's saying that women let him grab them by the pussy. Like I said, at the very least, this time he asked. Jay Scott's stupid story is somewhat of a stupid story, but they're going to blow this up. Rebel Cage Rattler, oh my God, I would love to do that, Bob. Somebody should start a Friday Night Live channel on YouTube where they would spoof SNL's neoliberalism. That's funny. That's funny. Rachel Maddow chalkboard she uses to draw the connections between Trump and Putin, anything like the crazy ones Glenn Beck used to draw. When you said chalkboards, Glenn Beck was the first person I thought. It's like, yeah, I remember that maniac. I remember him. This isn't going to stick on President Nasty Entropy Rules, Jamal. No, it's not going to stick, Noble Brown. This is kind of my point. This is my point. Donald Trump shouldn't have paid 1 iota to the porn star. I just strongly suspect men will look at this and think it was pretty cool. I really do. Women take shots at me on this sometimes. You have some people who are strongly in this camp of thinking that people should behave in a very specific way. Well, I disagree with those people. I think human beings are human beings. I think they're adults. And human beings can make certain decisions within boundaries of reason that is not offensive to other human beings, if that makes sense. Meaning, I want you to be the full expression of who you are, man or woman, providing that doesn't necessarily grate on somebody else. I say that to say, I like this idea of people being, I'm saying this poorly and I'm saying this wrong. I guess I mean, I like this idea of people being a little bit more open and freer in this regard. I don't like this idea of people being, when I say that men are gonna look at this and men are gonna think to themselves, that's pretty cool. Whereas women may look at this and be like, oh, they'll be aghast by this. Women are looking at this from the standpoint of the marriage. Men are looking at this from the standpoint of, oh my God, he's sleeping with a porn star. This is the divide that I'm talking about in this kind of conversation. I think the people are going to look at it differently. One looks at it as if it's a breach of a trust, and it is a breach of a trust. The guy looks at it as, what are the opportunities, or what are the chances I'm going to get to sleep with a porn star? And again, that's also true. The problem is, you're breaching your wife's trust. But on the other side of it, that particular person is thinking to themselves, what opportunity am I going to get to sleep with a porn star? And like I said, he has this image in his head of what this woman is and what this is going to be like. I guess I'm not shocked by it, that's all. I'm not shocked by it. I wouldn't be shocked by Donald Trump sleeping with an average woman, let alone a porn star if he got the opportunity. I don't think Melania would be shocked by this news either. She may be embarrassed that it comes out in public. She may not be shocked by it. That's all I'm saying. The problem with this is that he paid her off, not that he slept with a porn star. The fact that he paid her off makes him look guilty because it looks like you're paying somebody off. Anytime you're paying somebody off, regardless of what you're paying them off for, it makes it look like you're guilty. You're paying somebody off. It's almost like incriminating just by virtue of what it is. Mind you, to some degree, it doesn't really matter what it is. You paid somebody off. It looks bad. It looks extremely bad. Yep. And if Melania knows all of this and she's been okay with doing this stuff on the side, no wonder why she looks pissy at times. I would be if the world kept being mean and in my business. Well, you know, in the book, in Fire and Fury, there's a line in the book that's brutal. That book is a hit piece. The entire book is a hit piece. But there's a part in the book where he makes this point of, and Donald Trump, this flawed man who hasn't been able to keep fidelity with his wife, would at the very least keep this one promise that he is not going to win the presidency. And at last, this was a promise that he couldn't keep either. Like, he writes in this book from a God's point of view, like this omniscient perspective and the things that the guys are saying. And in that particular line, when he's talking about the election, where Melania does not want to be the wife of a president. She doesn't like this attention and scrutiny. She has this nice little life that nobody really pays attention to, and he made some derisive term, like she can have her brunches, or she can get back to her brunches. This is funny on so many levels. It hits at this idea of the rich being lazy, and that ultimately, you know, these guys are just sitting on their ass all day while that money makes money for them. So she can just get back to her brunches, you know, where everybody else is working. But getting to this point of, on the election night, she wept. She wept. Donald Trump had looked like he had seen a ghost. She was in tears. And ultimately, this man who, you know, was infidelity, you know, in general, was once again, here's another lie, or another promise that he couldn't keep. The book makes the point that Donald Trump has cheated on his wife multiple times. And so, again, this is not mind-blowing. Like, I understand they're going to try to hit him with this. They're trying to go with this idea of Donald Trump is a sexual abuser, Donald Trump is a sexual maniac, Donald Trump is etc. blah, blah, blah. Are they unaware that the people already baked that into the cake when they voted for the guy? Are they completely unaware? Copter Force. Donald Trump is a sexual predator and lying pig. What else is new? Right. Copter Force. Right. Right. That's my point. That's my point. Jamal, your sound is a little low. Not too much. Let's see. Let's get closer to the mic. All right. Let's try to get a little closer. This mic is a little different to me, so it's a little weird. Like, the closeness of it, how close or how far away I need to be for it, still is a little weird to me. Yeah, she was really upset. It was obvious. Yvonne Legolis. That's what tell-all book I'm waiting for. Melania's. Oh, man. Sabrina B. What, Fly on the Wall? Yeah, that would be a rough book. That would be a rough book. President Nasty is nasty. Yeah, right. It's like these people are like, we think Donald Trump is racist. And it's like, are you fucking kidding me? You just now realizing that the guy is racist? Like, the news is so fucking weird to me. I don't know, man. It's just so fucking weird to me. It's the guy comes out in his campaign, starts it off. You know, Mexicans are rapists and drug dealers. I assume some of them are nice people. It's like, so the overwhelming majority of Mexicans are rapists and drug dealers in Donald Trump. And you're like, that sounds a little bit racist to me. I mean, you're for the most part pigeonholing an entire country, entire race. fuck are you doing? Why are you doing that? And why do you believe that? And for the news crew, just that point by itself, let alone all of the stuff that took place with the allegations, coming up with some of the people who work with the guy, just that part by itself is horrendous and gets across a certain frame of mind. And the news crew would just be openly like, Donald Trump calls those countries shitholes. That sounds racist to me. That sounds racist. It's like, yeah, it's like you guys are rehashing shit that everybody already knew. It's like, fuck, man. The most disturbing thing to me is not many seem to talk about is Donald Trump's obvious sexual attraction to his daughter Ivanka copped force. Oh, that's wrong. That's wrong. I think that's why so many Trump voters relate to Trump. They're also daughter fuckers. Oh, that's wrong. That's wrong. That's wrong. That is so wrong. Rainbow Boom X. Trump is another Bill Clinton, sort of. Yeah, right? I mean, they were buddies. They were friends. They were friends. And Bill Clinton had his own sexual allegations. I mean, do you remember when Donald Trump had the press conference? He had all of Bill Clinton's rape accusers sitting at the table. And he had the mic going from each one of the abusers so they can tell their story about how Bill Clinton raped, fondled, or just molested him. And you're like, wow, that is brutal. That is fucking brutal. Again, President Nasty is nasty. Trump hasn't done nearly anything as nefarious as Bill yet, promise. Well, we don't know. I mean, Donald Trump has rape accusers also. He has a string of abusive terms too. You people in other English-speaking countries suffer. Suffer. Microsoft Word technical report, the quality of newsprint and magazines out there, you'd be top editor, no spelling skills required. That was hilarious when Bill Clinton had that look on his face when all those women he probably accused were in front of him. I mean, what would be the look on your face if you're the president of the United States? You have a bunch of women standing in front of you talking about you're a rapist, and all of them are pointing their finger at you, this condemnative finger that you either abused, raped, or fondled them. I mean, what's the look that a human being has? Like, what's the politically correct look that you give in the camera? It's like, man. Trump is the less evil player to Bill Clinton. That's just it. I don't know. I mean, the stuff that happened to Bill Clinton were allegations. They were allegations. It's not like Trump doesn't have his own string of allegations. That's all I'm saying. I mean, in this case, he slept with a porn star. It was consensual. So, yeah, there's no story here. Like, there's no there to this particular story. Pancho Shiki. Remember when people said that Bill Clinton was going to be the last of the great American dick slingers president-wise? Well, they were wrong. We got one more, right? We got one more. Look, I will go out on a limb here, but I got to be honest. I am not mad with Donald Trump making this choice. If this was on his list, like if this was a proved upon list that if you caught the person with and you're like, okay, I don't like that you did this. I'm angry that I found out about this. But I understand. I understand. Is that what this is? And if that's what this is, you can condemn me as a man for giving him an okay with this, but this is between him and his wife. This is between him and his wife. I'm not mad at him. Or Appalachia loves vicariously through Donald Trump pussy grabber. Is that what happens? Appalachia is living through Donald Trump's. This is kind of what I mean, man. I don't think the porn star thing hurts him. I think it's the fact that he paid her off. I think it's a payoff. Nobody is. Look, if somebody came to you and said, if they went to the New York Times and they said, look, I slept with Donald Trump. I'm a porn star and I slept with Donald Trump. The New York Times would run that story. The people who voted for Donald Trump would yawn and go on with their business. The people who didn't would wag their finger and they would scream that he was sexually abusive and all this other stuff and somehow conflate this with Putin and Russia and somehow some sexual abuse thing, that he was some kind of sexual deviant for doing it. And that the dossier had to be true because he slept with a porn star. It would be all sorts of, just weird stuff. But there's no story here. There's no story here. This doesn't get you any additional votes. This doesn't get you anybody who's even mad at him. I heard the story and I thought it was funny. And I not just thought it was funny, I was like, fair enough. Fair enough. I understand where you're coming from. Rebel Cage Rally, I agree. Would have said, go ahead, bitch. Talk all you want. I don't give a shit. Then walk away. What? Trump is just like a corporate Democrat, but is honest about it. Yes. Let me say it this way. Trump represents the worst aspect of American political system, and he's honest about it, yes. He's a liar, but he's honest about it. He's so bad at lying that it just, it's like it's such a bad lie that by virtue of him lying about it, it makes the truth that much more clear. That's what I mean when I say he's honest about it. Yeah, he's the worst face of the American empire. That's what it boils down to. The police are perverts or anyone's surprise. He's not a pervert for having sex with a porn star. I don't understand how that makes him a pervert. It makes him a guy who's curious. I just hope that porn star got tested for every disease known to man after sleeping with someone like Donald Trump. So, I gotta be honest, I did think it was slightly gross from the porn star standpoint. Like, why are you sleeping with Donald Trump? That was my feeling. Like, what? Damn cold weather is back with a vengeance. Only 10 degrees outside and lightning blowing. It is 60 degrees in Richmond. We are in winter. It is 60 degrees outside in Richmond. Tucker Carlson can go fuck himself. You're talking about, well, it was cold here. It is 60 degrees in Richmond. So, they did manage to indict Bill Clinton with the Monica Lewinsky thing. Nothing else stuck well enough to even get him in the courts. Yeah, they indict Bill Clinton with the Monica Lewinsky thing because Bill Clinton lied. He lied about the sexual thing. If he had lied about it, they wouldn't be able to get him on anything. In this case, you can't get Donald Trump on squat. I mean, ultimately, Donald Trump just paid somebody to shut up about an affair that he had. No, he shouldn't have paid her. No, it wouldn't have hurt him if it came out. Wouldn't have shocked not one person. And I gotta be honest, I understand him being somewhat jittery about this idea of somebody coming out saying they had an affair with him. But I guess my point is, I think he believes it was going to hurt him. And I am not confident that it would have hurt him. If I am not mistaken, he talks about having an affair in one of his books. So it's not, it's kind of baked into the cake. Did he pay $130,000 to get less of a headache from his wife? Damage litigation. See, that's the part I don't know. Like, is it Melania didn't know, so he was paying $130,000 for her to shut up? Or was it he's paying $130,000 for the election? I suspect it was for the election. I suspect he didn't want that to come out in the election. Donald Trump didn't realize he was President Nasty at the time of the payment. Oops for him, right? He didn't understand that people understood that this was what they were going to get with this particular president. Yeah, Noble Brown, I agree. I agree. He didn't understand who he was. All Trump really needs to do, if remain in good graces of the religious right, is to get down on his knees, cry, and say he was born again. I see that coming. It's like, I made a mistake. This porn star was standing before me, and I got weak in the knees. Yeah, something to that effect. Jesus, please, forgive me for my sins. I would never grab a pussy again that is not married to me. Something to that effect. He can figure it out. He can work his way out. Dirty Dick Donald. Oh, Donald Swaggart. Oh, Jimmy Swaggart. I remember Jimmy Swaggart just weeping and crying. Like, oh, I said. Yeah, I remember Jimmy Swaggart. No, man, he just need to fall to his knees. The religious right will forgive him. The religious right understands that Donald Trump is not a religious guy. They just know that politically he'll give them what he wants. Meaning, he'll lean their way. As long as he leans their way, he doesn't have to be a perfect human being. They'll be hypocrites on this. They'll give him a pass, understanding that they'll get politically what they want. They forgive him. They don't care about this. They don't care about this at all. I have sinned. Yes, Sabrina, I have sinned. But she could have been bitching at him to get it settled for the smaller amount of money so they could have less of a debt out. More money for them. Yeah, I don't know. I just think it was a bad idea for him to pay it off. I just think it was a bad idea to pay it. You say it was a payoff, but that dummy was just paying for sex as usual. It's new to you, not to him. He had to pay for it because he's so... No, 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 no. He had already had sex with her. I mean, at this point, he had sex with her. He had an affair with her. But just before the election, it was years and years ago. Like, it was like 2006. Just before the election, he pays her off. He's like, his lawyer gives her $130,000 to shut up. Don't mention this to the press. So he wasn't paying for sex. Sex had already taken place. He had already, did his diddling. Diddling had already been done. K-Far. HA says a grand jury has been formed in Little Rock for the Clinton Foundation. Now there might be some indictments. Yeah, it has formed. So that was one of the stories that came out in the Washington Post, that they were still continuously to look into the Justice Department. I suspect they were shamed into this. I mean, the argument has been that the FBI had been politicized. You can imagine if you were the FBI, the last thing you want people thinking is that you're a politicized organization. And if you think that the Clintons were able to get off on something that they shouldn't have gotten off on, I can see you've been a little bit motivated looking into the Clinton Foundation tapes, particularly when it's out. Everybody looks at it. Donald Trump has been screaming about it. Half of the public has been screaming about it. I can kind of see the FBI being, okay, we need to look into this. And we need to have an actual investigation this time, as opposed to the top-down investigation that was had under the Obama administration. Yeah. Indictments are imminent. Yeah, the clickbait, right? The clickbait. No, Jamal, he was late paying a bill, and under the original payment as usual, he's just a cheap steak and bum and paying for vendors. You're trying to say that... You're trying to call a woman a prostitute. You're trying to say that. And look, I don't care if she is. Prostitution should be legal also. I mean, I've said it before, I'm further to the left than most. All drugs should be legal. Prostitution should be legal. We should have far less people in our prisons, in our jails. You're putting human beings in a cage. You should have a really damn good reason to do that. The state should have a massive burden of proof if you're going to take somebody's liberty away in that way. Prostitution should be legal. Now, that being said, you should have a social safety net that doesn't force women to be prostitutes. Meaning, if you're going to be a prostitute, you're being one because you want to be one. If you want to be a porn star, you're being one because you want to be one, not because you need to put food on the table. Now, yes, I thread the needle on this one. But, so I just wanted to make the point. I don't care if this was that's what that was. It's her choice. She's a human being. She can make her own decisions on this. But, come on. That's kind of brutal. You're saying that the woman was a prostitute, that Donald Trump gave a pay later. It's like he ran a tab. And she's like, if you don't pay up, I'm gonna tell. That's fucked up. That's so wrong. Legalizing prostitution would also help reduce human trafficking. Good point, K-Far. Good point. Mr. X. What do you disagree with, Mr. X? Talk to us. Luke 2:21. Let he who has not had sex with a porn star cast the first shoe. Well, here's a question. If we allow people to really be whatever they wanted to be, would there be prostitutes? I honestly don't think so. Well, right there. This is kind of the point I'm getting at. If you have to outlaw it, then something in your society is driving the behavior. Either it's because the person wants to do that, meaning that person wants to be this kind of sex worker. Or your society is geared in a way that creates certain inequities where that person feels like this is what I need to do to survive. And this is the least worst option to survive. I don't want a society that has that driver in it at all. By the same token, I don't want a society that forces people to be fry cooks and forces people to be drivers and forces people to be checkout counters. If a robot can do those things, I want a robot to do those things. Meaning, if we have driverless cars, then yes, I want the driverless car to deliver the pizzas and deliver the Chinese food. I don't want human beings with immense, awesome fucking potential doing those things. But again, we're back at the social safety net thing. If your society is reared in a way where people can go without their needs being met, then yeah, your society is going to force people to be these particular positions. You're going to force people to be fry cooks at restaurants that they hate, smelling like french fries and hamburgers, not because they want to be there, but purely because they need a job and they would go without any other way. Same thing with sex workers. Same thing with porn stars. If you want to stop those things, or if you want to reduce those things, you deal with the societal structure itself. You arrange the society in a way that at the very least has a floor to that society, where regardless of what's taking place in that person's life, that person know they would have their basic needs met. Food, clothing, shelter. They wouldn't necessarily have to go into prostitution or porn or doing fry cooks or these other, menial jobs that can be operated by robots. So yeah, I agree with you, man. I agree with you. Sex clubs aren't forced on people. No, sex clubs aren't. Here's the thing. There's, and this is kind of my point of saying it should be legal. If you have that societal structure and people decide they want to do prostitutions, have at it. If they want to be porn stars, have at it. If they want to have some kind of business where they give massages and they don't call it sex, they call it something else. In which case, but at the end of the day, it's still some kind of sexual massage. Have at it. I don't care. Allow people to be people. Allow people to be free. I just don't want the compulsion of you're not going to have your needs met if you don't do X or Y. So, Mr. X, prostitution is giving up your dignity or self-respect. I don't agree. Well, again, it depends. It depends. If I, as a person, choose to be a sex worker, not because I'm forced to, but because I want to, how are you going to tell me I'm giving up my dignity at that point? I am making a choice. That's a choice. Now, if I am a sex worker because I need to take care of my kid, that's different. That's different. But, Brahm, you could make that argument about any job. Any job that you're talking about, you can make that argument that that person is giving up their dignity and their self-respect and everything else. You walk into your place of employment, you're subordinating yourself to the place that you work. You're choosing the plantation to which you work. If you're operating French fries as a fry cook, all the potential that you have as a human being is being whittled down to this company just to drop French fries into a fryer, just to flip a hamburger. How is that not a loss of self-respect and dignity? They even put a stupid little hat on you and put you in a uniform to represent their interests, to show that you're owned by this particular group. If prostitution is giving up your dignity and self-respect, then so is that. So is being a fry cook. Enjoying it to the point where they'd be paid by strangers for it, I just find it difficult to fathom. Everybody has their kinks. I mean, but again, this is my point. I need to postulate this because I need to drill this down. I need to make sure you understand what I mean by this. I'm postulating this in an environment, in a country, where the social safety net is such that that person is not going broke and hungry. That person is making a choice. Meaning, for whatever reason, they get their jollies and get their kicks off of doing this. And there are people who get their jollies and kicks. There are people with all sorts of kinks. You have somebody with a kink that would lay down and have somebody beat the shit out of them. You have another kink where somebody would put their balls in some kind of contraption and be squeezing it and whatnot. I mean, you have all sorts of interesting and odd kinks that people have. So it wouldn't shock me that somebody may have a kink of being roughed up, which they do, BDSM. It wouldn't necessarily shock me if somebody have a kink of being used. Again, it wouldn't, again, areas of BDSM. I mean, people have odd and interesting kinks. My issue with this is I don't want a person to be compulsed into doing it, but I don't want to be a person forced into any labor. And so understand what I'm saying on this. I consider all of this labor to be somewhat offensive. It's one thing if you're doing this of your own free will and your own volition. It's another thing when you have a certain amount of agency in the thing that you're doing and not being whittled into a tool for somebody else's advantage or somebody else's profit. There's a difference in those things. Whether it's prostitution, a fry cook, some other business where you're working at Walmart, whatever. Those things are very similar. I know you're making a difference in saying, well, this is your body. This person is giving up some aspect of their body in this way. You're giving up your aspect of your body in the other way also. It's just done in a different way. So I agree with you, Braun, but I don't agree. It's like I have this agreement and disagreement. I agree from the standpoint if they're being forced to do so and not doing on their own free will. If that is not the case, then yeah, I don't want to stop a human being, a free human being, for doing something that they may want to do. Mr. X, I have more respect for someone working 3 to 4 jobs to make ends meet than someone that's a prostitute. Why? 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 Why are you shitting on prostitutes? Like, what's? I understand you may not necessarily like their line of work, but what do you have to do with that? Like, what does that have to do with you? And how are they somehow degraded and devalued in your mind just because they're doing that? Are they human beings, and do human beings have value? And can human beings make a choice to make ends meet? I mean, come on, it's fucked up. How are you going to say you look at them in a particular way just because they're doing a job that you don't necessarily like? It's like, come on. For the Zetan virtue police that are ragging on Trump with sexuality free lifestyle, sexually free lifestyle, says their Bible, even if you look upon a woman with lust, you have committed a sin in your heart. Yeah, that's why I don't use that particular book to judge myself by. So, Mr. X, there I have to disagree with you. Brahmas, yeah, I could not disagree with you more. I could not disagree with you more. Somebody makes the decision that they need to either take care of themselves, take care of their kids. For whatever reason, they are in a society where they will go without. If you don't work, you don't eat. You don't have a house. You don't have anywhere to stay. Your decision space, your freedom in this society is purely dependent upon the amount of cash that you have. Your decision space is purely dependent upon your capital. For whatever reason, that particular person decided to go into prostitution, be it man, woman, whatever. That's their choice. People make choices. They're going to make choices that you don't particularly like. You're adding some additional value to sex. You're taking these puritanical values and associated with it to sex. There are things that people tolerate better than others. If this is something that they themselves tolerate better than doing something else, God bless. You don't have to like it. It's none of your business. But it should be their choice. It should be their choice. I mean, there's all sorts of things that I think people shouldn't do or people shouldn't engage in. That particular choice is their own personal choice. Now, yes, that choice is being compelled and pushed by the society in some way. So in that case, I don't necessarily like this idea of them feeling that they have to give up their body as a way of making ends meet. But condemning them because they decide that this is something I can do easier and better than doing something else, and this is something I can do to kind of square the circle, that's on them. That's on them. Well, what's that place? The Kittyland Ranch in Las Vegas? You have a ranch where it's like it's a ranch where you can go for prostitution and all this other stuff. Ultimately, it's a safe place for people to be kinky and get it on. I have no negative feelings for anybody who works in that industry. It's their choice. I want them to be safe. I want them to be tested. I don't want them passing around virus or getting viruses themselves. I want no injury to them at all. But I have no negative feeling towards it. It's their choice. They're just doing a job like any other job. I don't see why that's all of a sudden beneath you at this point. So yeah, capitalism when it's for sex. Yeah, I mean, that's essentially what we're saying. We're getting iffy with capitalism when it's sex involved. It's like, why? Why are you getting iffy with capitalism now? What about getting iffy with capitalism when people are making bombs and blowing the shit out of other people? There are plenty of aspects of capitalism where you should get iffy about. Is this where we need to start? Is this the part we need to start? But the ranch takes 50% of the profits. The only way to be legal is to be robbed. Unless they have a worker co-op. So that would be a perfect space to have a worker co-op. Meaning some of the women who, let's say some of the women who are in the porn industry come together, create their own ranch as a competitive ranch, and have, yeah, that would be a perfect spot for a worker co-op. They could take over more of their profits, get rid of the elite, the guy, the pervert who essentially runs that place, and essentially own their own business. They can bring in more profit and everything else. So yeah. Would you marry a wife if she was a prostitute? Be honest, Mr. X. Yes. If I fell in love with my wife and she told me later on that she was a prostitute, yes. Because at that point it wouldn't necessarily adversely affect anything that I've developed or feelings for. And B, even if my answer was no, what does that have to do with the price of tea in China? Like, even if I said, no, I wouldn't have married her if she was a prostitute, if she told me she was a prostitute. Do you believe that my choice in that in any way adversely affects her value as a human being? It doesn't. Do you believe that the job that she's doing in this case is adversely affecting her value as a human being? It does not. It does not. This demeaning is purely coming from you. It's not inherent into the process of her job. That's my point. I think that socialized prostitution has happened already. Well, it's what, Amsterdam. Amsterdam. I think you should be able to grow your own weed and sell your own ass right out of your own home. M99, yes, agreed. But look, we're lefties. I mean, this channel is far to the left. So in our head, drugs should be legal, prostitution should be legal, fucking and all of it should be legal. So yeah. My husband married me as a prostitute. I was so glad when I got to give it up and just work my day job more time for my baby girl. Mr. X, then you're a better man than me. It's not about being a better man than you. These things are just choices and personal choices. That's all I'm saying. It's human conception, dude. That's all I'm getting at. If it's not your cup of tea, fair enough. And would it raise an eyebrow if my wife told me she was a prostitute? Yes. Would I in any way think of her as less if she told me that? No. Would I be curious? Yes. Yes. But who my wife is would still be who my wife is if my wife was a prostitute. Like the person who I would fall in love with, who I fell in love with, the person who I interact with, that person hasn't been fundamentally changed by the process. In fact, if I fell in love with that person was probably that way because of the process, if that makes sense. All of those things added to be who that person is. I am interacting with this person. I get to know this person. This person told me they were a prostitute. What am I supposed to do? Walk away at that point? I love that person at that point. All of the experiences that person encountered in their life got them to be the person who they are. That means that part of that person being a prostitute to some degree would have added to that person's personality of who that person was. It doesn't demean the person. That's what I'm saying. There's a societal view of this, but that societal view is purely cultural. It doesn't have to be that way. There is no word of God that said that person is lesser than because that person chose that particular lifestyle or is end up in that particular lifestyle. I don't quite understand why you believe that person is somehow lesser than because they're that particular duty. Is a person lesser than because they're a fry cook? It's because we're bringing sex into the capitalism that it becomes this kind of seedy thing. Why does sex make it seedy? Why is that the demarcation point in regards to interactions with the person? Like I guess I just don't understand. I understand from a religious standpoint. I even understand from a societal standpoint where society looks at this particular thing with a particular light. I'm saying from a real world reality standpoint, meaning this human being has value. And this particular human being engaged in a job just like other human beings engaged in a job. That job involves sex. How is that undermining the individual? Honestly, how does that undermine the individual? I understand you're saying, would I do it? You're making this argument that, is there a gut level feeling that you feel off about it? That's the argument that you're making. I'm saying, is that gut level feeling real or is that just your feeling? And how does it actually demean and undermine the person, who that person is? Meaning the inherent value that's in that person, just because that person was a sex worker. That's what I'm fundamentally missing. My reason for saying that this stuff should be legal and regulated and tested and all this other stuff, just like any other job, is because I don't think it undermines the person. I think there's a religious argument that's to be made, or that's often made. And you can even make an argument that, look, I don't want people forced into that industry. Let me say it that way. But at the same token, at the point where somebody's in the industry and they decide that I can do this better than something else, or I can do this because it needs to make my ends meet, I'm not going to look at the person as a lesser than for it, because that's my point. Not for nothing, but I would do Stormy 2. Stormy Daniels. I remember Stormy Daniels. That's the wild part. Dale Chomsky, doing any job because you're forced to survive is no different than prostitution. That's my point. Yes, agreed. Only difference with sex work is a moral judgment visited upon you for doing it. Yeah, agreed. Yeah, agreed. I think I said as much, but I think you just said it better. Agreed. Agreed. It's like that person is being a fry cook. That person is being whittled down into a tool to be a fry cook. I'm still giving up my body. Not just giving up my body. They're putting him in a stupid looking uniform showing that I am owned by this particular company. I'm paid by this company a poverty wage in order to work in some demeaning job, wearing a stupid little hat, denoting my ownership. You're giving of your body either way. The difference in this is sex. Your genitals are involved. The society itself has this kind of odd view and an interesting view of sex that puts this kind of moral judgment. Yeah, agreed. 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 And yes, I would have done Stormy Daniels also. Agreed. You would do Stormy knowing she does people like Trump. You poo. What? What? Well, I wouldn't have known that. And if I'm being honest, I probably wouldn't have seen Stormy Daniels as Stormy Daniels. I probably would have seen Stormy Daniels as, oh my God, this woman's a porn star. And that being said, I gotta be honest, I probably would have been slightly freaked out by the whole thing. So, Mr. X, I consider myself a lefty, but not this far left. And you would be content with your daughter becoming a prostitute if she chose prostitution as her aspiration. It's not that I would want her to be a prostitute, Mr. X. It's that I wouldn't look down on her for it. That's my point. It's a difference in those things. There are things that I don't necessarily want for if I had a kid, or if I want for my wife, or if I want for my whatever. But that's a different question on whether I would look down on the person for doing it. And the answer is no. No, I would not want my daughter to be a prostitute. No, I wouldn't want my wife to be a prostitute. But no, I would not look down on one iota for doing it. That's my point. I don't have the moral judgment on this. I guess that's my point. It's like, I don't want them forced to do anything. I don't want anybody forced to do anything. This is kind of a point. You're adding something to it with regards to sex, and I understand it. I get it. I'm just saying I don't add the moral judgment associated with sex. We have this weird hang-up about sex in this regard. It's okay for us to have people working in these weird jobs, whether it's killing, whether it's injuring, look at the position of cops in this case, beating human beings. Would I prefer somebody doing porn as opposed to being a cop? Yes. Yes. I would have preferred somebody doing porn as opposed to somebody out there beating up protesters in Standing Rock. Yes. Any day of the week and twice on Sundays. I want them to be safe. I want them to be tested. I don't want anybody to be harmed in the process. But yes, there are certain jobs that I would prefer people to be porn stars or prostitutes as opposed to being other jobs. The point I'm trying to get at is, no, all things being equal, I would not want my daughter to be a prostitute. And no, I would not want my wife to be a prostitute. Would I look down on either one of them for it if they came and said, Dad, I've been doing X, or, husband, I've been doing X? No. No, I wouldn't. And I don't take this as a shot to your leftism or anything like that. So don't get me wrong, Brom. This is not me. Mr. X, this is not me taking shots at you on this. I'm just saying I disagree with you on this. I don't think you're adding a moral component to it, but that moral component is coming purely from you. You would find other people who would agree with you with the moral component, but that moral component is only coming from them. It does not fundamentally exist. It's not something that's just there by the grace of God that exists. It's something that you yourself as a human being is adding to the mix. You're adding a judgment to it. That's what I'm getting at. Brom, SL1. Because this is very necessary service you're doing. Oh, thank you, Brom. I appreciate it. Thank you. Yeah, guys, I appreciate the super cash. It slightly rough year so far, so the super cash helps and it's appreciated. It really is. Rebel Cage Rattler. Oh, hell yeah. I would go back to being a prostitute before I would go back to Standing Rock and get the living shit beat out of me by weather issues and goons. Yeah. Mr. X, I understand where you're coming from. I grew up in this country and this society too, so I understand the religious and this weird cultural thing that we put on sex. So I get it. I get it. I'm just looking at it this from outside of that context, outside of this societal structure. And there's nothing there. That's something you're adding to. Jeremy Shellman, the security officers who ushered the patient to the street in Baltimore was using the bodies are far worse than asking for money for sex. Yeah, they are. Think of the shame, the depravity of that. They took that woman out of the hospital and threw that woman out into the street in freezing weather. That woman had on a bathrobe or a hospital gown. and shoes, just like socks or something, or footies. And as depraved that the act was, they just walked back into the hospital as if nothing had taken place. They took a human being, using their bodies as the arms of the hospital itself, the plutocrats in the hospital, to take that woman out and throw her into the street, into the freezing temperatures. Are you telling me that the way that their body is being used is somehow better than a prostitute? There are worse things in prostitution. That's all I'm saying. The worst things in prostitution. Genital Employment was the name of my high school band. Are you shitting me? No way. No way. Genital Employment. That's awesome. That's awesome. That's awesome. M99. Never estimate niche preferences. You could be the rock star of a lazy service. The rock star of a lazy service. Terry Robinson. Oh, Terry. Thank you. Thank you, Terry. You didn't leave a message, so I'm just going to say Terry Robinson. Thank you. That is so fucking funny. Genital service. That's awesome. What is the Joe Biden thing? Poolside transparency. Joe Biden used to like to go into the pool naked when his wife wasn't around, in front of the security guards and Secret Service. Somebody said poolside transparency with Joe Biden. Did you see when Trump was confused and befuddled? Yeah, I've seen that picture of him before. Yeah, again, yeah. He's not necessarily up on things like talking about. It's obviously not just bodies. I'd argue mental abuse via Israeli surgery is worse. Yeah, I see. I know what you mean. You're saying, yes, those workers are giving up their bodies for this, but there are other positions where people have to do really ghastly things where they're being compelled to do those things because, well, they're being paid to do those things. A prostitute, yes, is paid to give up her body for cash and, do favors or whatever else. She sets certain limits, and providing that that particular person doesn't abuse and go beyond those limits, she ends that particular thing. It's capitalism with genitals. The society gives it a moral quality to it, so it looks at that as being somehow fundamentally different as other depraved experiences. I would say, again, being a fry cook is a depraved experience. They put you in a little hat. They have you doing something that's immensely undermining of who you are as a person. That's the first part. Being a soldier, meaning they're sending you somewhere else to murder or get killed for unsavory causes. Meaning there weren't weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. Those people went over there killing and murdering for nothing. For nothing. Sabrina B. Wow. Thank you, Sabrina. Oh, very nice. Thank you, Sabrina. Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty sure we can think of all sorts of jobs where you would probably say, okay, that job is worse than essentially giving up my body for sex. Yeah. Just so y'all know, I absolutely appreciate you, and I dig the snot out of all y'all. Thanks for being here. Rebel Cage Rattler. Stripping looks a lot like exercise to me. I kind of want to lay there and watch TV or something. What? M99. Mr. X, it's okay to disagree with me. I would feel I failed as a father if my child decided to choose prostitution as a profession. Maybe I'm a moral high horse, but to each his own and their own. Mr. X, nobody is giving you shit about this. Like, it's... One of the things I loved about my chat is you guys talk and you guys just have a conversation. It's not you're a fucking asshole and you're... None of that stuff. Just disagree. People can disagree. People can totally disagree. Jamal may need a break to empty his G-string. It depends. It depends. It depends. Sure, Rebel. Back at you. Oh, right. I get it. Because people put money in my G-string, right? Right. The digital table dance. Yeah. Jamal, did you speak about the shuttle comment? What shuttle comment? To each his own, yeah. There are plenty of people that do people they would never screw for money in the first place. There are plenty of people that do people they would never screw for money in place. It is men and women. Hollywood was built on it. Politics is everything. Gardner, what gets me is people who complain about commercial culture and they want to commodify sex. Commercial culture want to commodify sex. I don't think it's people want to commodify sex. I think it's, let me say it this way. I look at it as it's people choice. It's personal choice. Now, again, I don't want people pushed into it. Like, I don't want it to be, oh my God, I don't have my needs met, in which case now I need to get into XYZ. But if you as a person have some kind of kink and you want to get your rocks off, do your thing. I'm not going to stop you from doing that. Stormy Daniels, happy flapping. I have no idea what that means. Yeah, I have no idea what that means. Jury's 81. Lord Goody, thank guy. I am out to XVids. Oh, that's funny. That's funny. Same argument as weed. Making it legal doesn't mean everyone is going to do it. Sabrina B, yeah, exactly. Exactly. Same argument for all drugs. It's like just because you make heroin legal doesn't necessarily mean that people are going to be like, you know what? I was just going to go to the movies, but I'm going to do some crack today. I want to get some crack in. I mean, I don't know anybody who would do that. Sex is used as a guilt tool sometimes. Sex is used for all sorts of things. They use sex to sell cars. They use sex to sell deodorant. They use, sex is commodified in all sorts of ways. Once corporations figure out how to outsource sex work, it'll be not only legal, but advertised on every flat surface. Bob Mercer. Sorry, you can't compare prostitution to drug use. It's apples and oranges. No, it's still personal choice. Still personal choice. A person makes a personal choice to use pot. A person makes a personal choice to say, I want to essentially be a prostitute. I want to be a sex worker. That's their choice. I mean, ultimately, any law that you make on that is telling a person that they can't do X. You can do that, but ultimately, you're telling a person that they can't do X, something that that person may indeed want to do. Luca Clemente, Rebel Cage Rattler, because you are among kindred spirits, for the most part, yeah. Think how confused asexual folks are in our culture. I don't think they're confused. Well, maybe. Maybe. I mean, yeah. That was weird. It ended. No, I'm back. I'm back. You're losing the libertarian argument. If you commodify sex, that many won't have a choice but to participate. That's what I don't get. I don't understand why you think just because you make sex legal or you make prostitution legal that you're somehow forcing people to be prostitutes. It's as if we already don't have prostitutes. I say, come on. I say, come on. The difference for this is I'm not putting somebody in prison cell because that person decided they wanted to be a prostitute. I want them to have worker co-ops where they themselves can join together in order to have a better society. And mind you, a lot of this, I don't like this idea of pushing people into any job. I don't want to force people into doing something that they hate and despise doing. But if the person makes a choice of saying, I would rather do this than that, then me, I'm not going to play big government and tell that person no. So yeah, you can call it whatever argument, libertarian otherwise. I think the argument is right. I won't mention sex and vibrators again. You can mention sex and vibrators all you want, Rebel. What's wrong with that? Your dildo with Rebel. What? What? That's funny. Mr. X buy a mirror. Why are you telling Mr. X to buy a mirror? We went too far, just too far for prime time. Now we're back. We're good. We're good. Yvonne Legolas. In medieval times, the Bishop of London was responsible for prostitution. What? Get the way he looked at it was if they would reduce the instances of rape. That too, by the way. No, maybe. I mean, it depends. I know people think all rape is for power. All rape is for power. I don't think all things are for every, all doesn't apply to everything. Maybe. I'm curious about that. Does it? So in Amsterdam, what's the level of rape in Amsterdam in comparison to other countries? I know when Amsterdam legalized pot, drug use went down, meaning other drugs went down. I wonder if that's true for prostitution also. It's interesting. One of the things I regret, my own regret, when I was in Amsterdam, I regret not buying a prostitute. I regret it. To this day, I regret it. Not so much because it was just the prostitute thing. It freaked me out. Like I am a double Virgo, man. I said it before. I it's one thing if I can understand what the process is going to be. Meaning, when I can think of the process and events, I'm okay with it because I can have this conceptual framework of how things are going to go. So whatever my insecurities are, I can essentially plan around those particular insecurities and have somewhat of a control over the experience. Even if we're playing around where we're giving up control, still have some degree of control over the experience. I had no idea what that was going to be. And one of the magazines that I read about it, and mind you, the only reason I wanted to do it is because it was available. It was like, in the same way you go to other countries and it's like you're in Egypt, you ride a camel. You're in Nepal, you wash a hippopotamus, or you wash an elephant. This is something that's here. This is something I want to try. It slightly freaked me out. Freaked me out. The women were somewhat aggressive. And again, I did not know what to expect. I read a pamphlet on what to expect. And the pamphlet freaked me out that much more. It didn't assuage my fears at all. It was like, this is not the most gentle of experiences. I think it said something to that effect. In that, how did he say it? He was like, they're not going to hold you in the morning, or this is not going to be one of those experiences where you're going to be held afterwards. It would be somewhat of a person washes, you guys meet a little bit of foreplay, get it up, wham bam, you're done, you wash, you get out, and they move on. And I heard that was like, what? I want to be held. I'm not going to be held afterwards. It just seemed a little rough. So yeah, I decided not so much on that. But I regret it to this day. I don't regret it because I didn't do it. I regret it because I was scared to do it. It's a difference in those things. I've gone skydiving. I've gone bungee jumping. I've done some really sketchy shit abroad, like in traveling, that I look back on and be like, oh my God, that was extraordinarily dangerous. I like experiences. Even if they scare the shit out of me, I like experiences. So the idea that I didn't take that particular experience is kind of, I'm ashamed. I'm ashamed of myself. Virgo, my ass. You're flat out chicken shit, Jamal. Your wife probably is the one who's the design spider remover. She is not. My wife will get up there and scream and come running downstairs and say, there's a spider on the ceiling that I need you to get off. Whatever. I have certain sensitivities about worker co-op. Yeah, they do. Agree. That's what I said. They need to have worker co-op. All of the prostitutes, all of the working girls need to combine their resources and start their own place. Start their own place. Edge out that asshole who's taking 50% of their profits. I mean, yeah, they need to do their own thing. Some people will pay for sex. Some people will want to be paid for sex. So what? Be nice if we could allow adults to do that and stop the sexualization of kids. Instead, it's the opposite. Yeah, you shouldn't sexualize kids either. I mean, the problem is you have a society that's so ensconced in sex. Like, this person is showing an ass cheek and eating a hamburger. What does the ass cheek have to do with the hamburger? Who fucking knows? But it sells the hamburger. Somebody shows an ass cheek near a car. What does the ass cheek have to do with the car? Who knows? It doesn't matter. It's just that the ass cheek is there. The ass cheek is grabbable, in which case that person wants to buy that car. Hey, you should wear this body spray because women love it when this body spray. You're not going to get any tail if you don't wear this body spray. I mean, it's never ending. It's never ending. I mean, it's the most bizarre thing in the world. If somebody came to this society and was just looking at our commercials, and one after the next, after the next, after the next, this woman, that woman, this woman's lips, this woman's legs, this woman's ass, this guy's abs, meaning his chest, this other guy's whatever. Never ending. It's never ending. A cacophony of sex. M99. I've seen something similar. Quite a show. Who knew that muscles could do this? Chris Bailey. You should read the whole thing, Sabrina. It's magical. K-Far. War and Sex. It about sums up the social underpinnings of the American propaganda. War and sex. When I was in Egypt, I was talking to this kid. He could barely speak English. He was one of the servers at a restaurant I was stopping at in Dahab. And he says, I want to go to America and have sex with girls. And he didn't speak the language well. And because of his own context, in Egypt, he just kind of took it as if sex was this free-wheeling thing that's just, swinging off the lampposts. Like, he just grab a vagina here and grab a breast there, and he's, just rubbing his face in it. And I tried to explain to him, like, dude, it doesn't work that way. I mean, these are human beings. Like, you can't necessarily just randomly, willy-nilly get sex in that way. And he didn't understand it. Like, so from their context, they don't necessarily have this thing where men and women are hanging out if these people aren't married, and or at the very least not in front of the adults. The kids have ways of getting around it, but for the most part, it's just the way, their culture. And so, from our standpoint, you look at TV, you see two Americans hanging in a bus, you're getting aroused, you're like, oh my God, oh, he's so close to her. He's sitting near her on the bus. He's sitting beside her. Oh my God, he's holding her hand. I think I'm gonna, oh, he held her hand. He held her hand. I couldn't hold myself. Different culture. Different culture. I tried to explain it to him. I like spiders and prostitutes. Do you, Dominique? Good for you. Good for you. Let's see. Amazing we managed to take an inane story of Trump and a porn star and extract an incredible, important, cultural relevant discussion. Wish more people thought about things this way. Dale Chomsky. Yeah, I know. It's my channel, man. It's my channel. I invited Lee Camp onto the show, and I was trying to explain the show. Lee Camp was like, well, what is the show about? And I was like, well, I said, it's kind of news with philosophical discussion with this idea of trying to bring in context to stuff that goes on in a daily discussion. I think this sums it up. Somewhat of a ridiculous story that I think most people looked at it as, okay, it's none of our business. It's just kind of comical. And drilling into this idea of prostitution, coming up with this kind of conversation on whether or not prostitution should be legal. Fucking love this channel, man. I love that opinions on this. Even when we had people who disagreed, a civil, insane conversation. I love it. Fucking love it. Ridiculous Bernie, bro. You have to watch Jamal to get it. What do you mean? To get what? To get what? What am I missing? What am I missing? I would go after Johns and pimps, not the girls. They do. They actually do. Like when they're doing up those things and stuff like that. Yeah, they do. I think I want to be one of those prostitutes who talk shit to people who like to feel bad. Oh, you mean a dom, a femdom. It's funny. It's like she puts her foot, like her heel on his balls, and she's like squeezing it. Yeah. She's like, this, you little pathetic piece of shit. You can't please me. Yeah. You want to be one of those. You want to be one of those. That's awesome. That's awesome. That's awesome. That is hilarious. Yeah, that's hilarious. I love that. I love that that's what you want to be. It's like grabs the person by their balls and all this other stuff and be slapping them on the ass. I was talking about the story the other day where it was this BDSM show, and the woman was a dom. She was a femdom, and she was doming another actress. She was another performer. And apparently the girl was like an actress or an artist or something like that. And she's like, you're an artist? She says, yes, I'm an artist. And she's like, are you ready to suffer for your art? And she says, I'm ready to suffer for my art. And at that point, she starts like beating the shit out of her. And it's like, you're a worthless little piece of shit. You can't please me. That's the dom that you want to be. You want to be one of those. That is awesome. That is awesome. I love it. I love it. Yeah, dominating prostitute. Yeah, that's awesome. Again, take a look at the squalid conditions. Most Nevada. Okay, Nevada brothels. Look at the laws in Nevada around prostitution. Then tell me you should go ahead and apply that system across the United States. I'm not saying you should apply that system across the United States. I'm saying whatever system you have, it should be regulated. Those people should be safe and protected. That's what I'm saying. Just because Nevada doesn't get it right doesn't necessarily mean other people can't get it right. It's like saying because the national healthcare system have people dying in the corridors because they haven't funded it adequately, that national healthcare service is somehow something that you should necessarily strive for. Yeah, you should strive for national healthcare service. You should just fund your national healthcare service and make sure it is adequate. The laws and legal apparatus should make sure that those brothels are adequate. This is kind of my point with the worker co-op thing. They should form worker co-ops, not, relying on this particular guy, this John who's taking 50% of the cash. Yeah. I mean, I have an ideological, my opposition to my being pro-legal on this is somewhat ideological. It's driven in this kind of, what should the individual be able to choose? And is this a personal choice? And the answer is yes. That comes with a caveat. I don't like this idea of the person being compelled into this particular field, but at the same token, I don't like the person compelled in any field. I don't like this person giving their body and their muscles and this kind of alienated labor to something that they absolutely hate. That being said, people have different tolerances. There may be people who tolerate this better than other things. It is not for me to make the judgment on whether or not that person do it. It's a humanistic argument. I don't, like, it's hard for me to make a justification of saying, I am going to tell this person that they should not do something that is a personal choice for that particular person. That's what I'm stuck with. Rebel Cage Rider, I have a Bluetooth headset and still listening, but will be away from the keyboard. Need a cig. Oh, addictions. Addictions. Hashtag addictions. And I'm qualified, trust me. Yeah, so Gundam, this is the part I think we starting to agree, right? I think this is where we meet heads. The pressures, the financial pressures. That, like, that feels awkward to me. By the same token, it's like, it feels like there's a moral argument associated with it, or that you're making a moral argument, which means you're adding something to that process of saying, I'm okay with people working one job, but I'm not okay with people working another particular job. Like, who says sex work? Working with my genitals. It's fucking funny. That's the thing. Making it illegal doesn't make it go away. No, it doesn't. There's prostitution right now. I mean, the conditions that some of the prostitutes are in is directly related to the fact that it's illegal. This is illegal. I'll leave my super mean teacher butt in and beat the shit out of someone physically and emotionally for Christmas money. I'm 99. I love this. I love this. She's like, I'm going to be a dom and I'm going to beat the shit out of people and get my aches and rocks off while they get their jollies off. And they're going to give me Christmas money. I love that. Bend over on this table. It's like, have you been a good boy for Christmas? Yes. You're a liar. I can just imagine this. I can totally imagine this. Dominique Bussa, it's one of the businesses that's consenting adults. I agree, Dom. Yeah, dude, I love this conversation, man. In fact, it's not the conversation. I just love the fact that we can have the conversation. If that makes sense. I don't know how other people's chats are, because I have to be honest, I had never really spent a lot of time in other people's chats. I started this just kind of winging it and just kind of came to this thing of do your spill in the beginning and just bring in the audience afterwards and just talk to the audience. I do think I am going to start bringing in phone lines for patrons because I think it would be cool to expand the channel to the point of having them to talk, to actually hear voices. But I love the fact that we can have this conversation. Like, any conversation, doesn't matter what it is. Like, even if somebody on the channel doesn't particularly agree, somebody on the channel vehemently disagrees, even if, whatever. Ultimately, I found that people, for the most part, have been able to just talk it through and have chats and conversations about it without being dicks about it. So, I love it. Just keep it up. Keep it up. If there's 100 people on this chat, I would still want it to be the same way. If it's 150, if it's 200, if it's 500, I want it to be the same way. Oh, you think Zoom is better? Much more interesting than talking about Trump. Yeah, it is, right? Yeah, the Trump thing, I just thought was funny. I didn't mean for this to go long for this particular story. I mean, it just kind of metastasized into what we're talking about now. The Trump thing was more of just a, oh, holy shit, this is hilarious. Donald Trump had sex with a porn star. That's awesome. That's where that came from. I was being a total guy. Like, holy shit, he had sex with Stormy Daniels. Of all the things that are wrong with Donald Trump, like, of the list of 100 things, this does not appear on it for me. This appear appears on the, that was kind of cool. This appears on the kind of cool list. Yeah, Jim Hyden, I feel you, man. Your chat is the only chat that I am free to let my mind flow through my mouth wherever I want. Rebel Cage, rather. Yeah, I don't tend to, I try not to judge on that stuff. I try to be somewhat dispassionate, and I like to be left to my own devices, and I like people to hear me out. And I guess my feeling is I try to be fair in what I'm saying, meaning I'm not trying to dick anybody in the way that I'm saying something. I may be sharp sometimes. That's fair. I tend to be Aries moon is what it is. But not unfair. At least I try not to be. And if I am, I try to apologize for being unfair. I want people to be able to say what people have to say, because I think that's the way you have conversations. Within limits. I mean, all this stuff goes within limits. I don't want people being racist or sexist or bigoted or anything else. And that's somewhat of a red line on all those things. I think you should defend those things to no end. But within a realm of conversation where we're having a talk and we're having just an honest conversation, yeah, man, I want you to be you. I want you to be you. Like, I don't want this situation where you're constraining yourself, Rebel. Say, be you. Speak your piece. Nobody's talking about you one way or the other. Like, nobody's thinking of you in any other way. In fact, I kind of like it. For being honest, I like it. This channel is about nuance, which I love. Rarely is anything black and white. Yes, Bullshit Man, agreed. I always said context. Chris Bailey, most chats are full of trolls and bots. We love chats as well, Jamal. So far, this is pure, pristine, intellectual conversation. Thanks for your wisdom. Wisdom is too strong, but I run my mouth, so yes, agreed. Rape apology. You know the funny part about this is, there was Gardner watched me have this insane conversation with these women who had lost their fucking minds. And how does a person deal with insanity? Like people just going full on into hysterical, like hysterics. And I don't say hysterical because they were women. I say hysterical because they were being hysterical. Like, it's that type of stuff where you're like, what the fuck just happened? It's like, hey, would you mind being on my show? Stop harassing me. It's like, I sent you 2 messages. That's not harassment. It's like, what the fuck is wrong with you? Oh man, some of these people are nuts. Some of these people are nuts. You do a show where you say, look, Jordan was massively inappropriate in the things that Jordan was doing. In no way should he be having sex at work. And in no way should he be using company money to have sex at work. Macking his employees was massively inappropriate, but it wasn't rape. That sounds to me like a sane and balanced perspective based on the information that's available to me. Rape apologist. Rape apologist. You're being a rape apologist, man. It's like, okay. It's like, okay. It's like, okay. Fair enough. You guys are fucking nuts. That's what's going on. Rebel Cage Rattle, I don't feel judged here at all. Why should you feel judged anywhere? Why would we judge you? We have nothing to judge you by. Terry Robinson, there are people with just about every viewpoint imaginable. What if we could do this on a national scale? Yeah, the problem is, at a certain point, those viewpoints are going to clash. Our viewpoints work in this because all of us accept that we're dealing with a certain level of integrity. Meaning, I'm not being a dick. None of us are being dicks just for the sake of being dicks. We're having an honest, actual conversation. It would be no different if all of us were in a room just talking. Each one of us have our particular personalities. Each one of us have our particular, nuances and way of debating and way of getting things across. All of us take those things in stride and we let each person be who they are. But nobody here is trying to be racist or sexist or none of that stuff. Nobody's throwing in, just kind of dickish comments. Everybody's just having a conversation. If you had people on a national scale that could do that, yes, but you're going to have varying points of views, and at some point those points of views are going to clash. Those points of views are going to clash. All of us are within a certain spectrum here, so all of us can have that conversation, even though we may float within that spectrum. No, man, I enjoy it. I enjoy it. I skate pretty heavily in... Look, I like to be left to my own devices, so I do tend towards libertarianism on some of that stuff. I think libertarianism becomes ridiculous when they believe that this idea of private interest and all this other stuff. But from the standpoint of leave me to my devices, and if state is going to make a law or if some kind of organization is going to be intact, that organization needs to justify its existence. If you're going to put people in prison for something, you need to justify taking that person's freedom away and putting that person in a cage. So on that point, yeah, I tend to stride libertarian. Yeah. Junior needs clothes for graduation. For some reason, the fandom thing trips me out, man. The fandom thing trips me out. It's baby needs clothes for graduation. I would imagine if you had to do anything, like if you had to do any sex work, that would be it. That would be it. I mean, granted, you have to dredge up this kind of this kind of either teasing or this kind of just viciousness. One of them. Like, you need a hook on this, I would imagine. You can't just beat the shit out of somebody. It would have to be this kind of you can't say baby needs graduation shoes. That wouldn't work. Maybe something like, yeah, you'd have to ask. You'd need either tease or anger. One of those. But yeah. Baby needs shoes for graduation. Whoosh. Fucking hilarious. Who was the hooker on Star Trek? There was no hooker on Star Trek. Oh, wait a minute. Wait a minute. Hooker's too strong. Those women were in charge. Even though they were kind of sex workers. I think I know what you're talking about. But those people, those women were in charge. Rebel Cage Rattle. All of the above, Jamal. Look, personally, I think that kind of play is fun. I think it spices things up. So, Rebel Cage Rattler, we have like mind on this one. I think that shit is fun. I think it's fun in both ways. Being the person in charge and to varying degrees, being the person not in charge. Even though that part freaks me out. So, immoral. Immoral. Ryan Slave Girls. Yeah, they were in charge, if I'm not mistaken. Microsoft technical support. I have the same issue with libertarianism. On a lot of issues, it makes perfect sense, like foreign policy. Then it just becomes dispassionate, and to me, yeah. Jamal, who's your favorite troll here? Garden, me, or Bob? I don't have any trolls here. I don't have any trolls. I don't take any of you guys as being trolls. Remember the honor Matrice from Dune? They were prostitutes who ruled the society. That's interesting. That's interesting. On the Star Trek one, too, it was like the prostitutes were the ones in charge and running the place. Or maybe they were selling themselves off as if they were prostitutes. I don't know if they were prostitutes for real. But, yeah, McCall was fucking nuts. He was nuts. I have to up my troll level. Oh, God. I have to up. I'm in peak troll mode in this moment. Planet Riser. They weren't hookers. Planet Riser wasn't full of hookers. There was no such thing as a hooker on Rising, dude. This is kind of my point. Without a capitalistic society, you don't have hookers. You don't have hookers. Those were people who freely giving up sex because they just enjoyed sex. They had a society based on pleasure. I'm pretty sure they had jobs at some point, but they gave in and said, you know what? Pleasure is fun. And we need to figure out a way to make sure that we get work done, meaning whether that's build machines or whatever else, in order for us to have more time for pleasure. There were no hookers. They gave up sex in the same way we would give a hug or a kiss because they just enjoyed sex. Jim Hyden, I apologize. Apologize for what, Jim? They like sex, yeah. They like sex. Nothing wrong with that. Just because you have your hang-ups being on Earth, you're not going to judge them in that way. How dare you, sir? How dare you, sir? I troll the shit out of you, Jamal. He's delusional if he doesn't recognize us as trolls. I guess I have infinite patience, man. I have infinite patience. Maybe that's what it is. Alright, guys. I am going to end this. Philip Dick's Electric Dream or Electric Something is on Amazon Prime. And I am going to binge watch the shit out of that tonight. So, hopefully that is going to be fucking amazing. That's going to be fucking amazing. If you love, what's the show? If you love Black Mirror, you would love this. Look, Clemente Jamal has a thick skin. It's not that I have a thick skin. I don't take what they're saying as being wrong. And if what they're saying is right, then I have to give it credence, if that makes sense. Like, it's one thing if you're saying something that's just so fucking off the wall. It's another thing. It's like, there's a difference between how you say it versus what you're saying. You know, where you could say something, you can get it across that is disagreeing. That doesn't necessarily come across as just being a dick. You can disagree with me all you want. Again, fuck do I care? What am I gonna do? It's like what? You, I think that blue is a better color. Okay. Good on you. Good on you. Good night, lovely people. Big hugs. Big hugs back at you, Rebel Cage Rattler. Good night. Yeah, good chat with you too, Garden. All of you guys, good night. Everybody saying good night. Alright, guys, you all have a good night. Thank you for showing up. I'm not going to do a long goodbye. Earth Final Conflict was bingeable too. I like that. Yeah, I remember when they came out. I actually watched all that. Was it Earth's Final Conflict? Maybe. I think we're talking about the same thing. Yeah, I think we're talking about the same thing. Alright, guys. You all have a good night. Luca, good luck with that dissertation. Fucking A. I did not know you were writing a dissertation. Not another hour. No. That's okay. I'm going to call it a night. It's almost 11 o'clock. Alright, guys. Yeah, you guys have a good night. Everybody, absolutely appreciate the super cash. Thank you very much. I don't remember each and every one of you names, but I think I identified each person who gave tonight. Thank you very much. You guys have a good night. If you enjoy the content, feel free to share, like, subscribe, and of course, you can support through Patreon. Night, guys. And thank you for coming on.